Would you rather Patrick Mahomes or CJ Stroud?
I'm going to surprise you with this one. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
Listen, Patrick Mahomes, I think I had him last year in one of my leagues. Listen, he wasn't like the best, but listen, you know what you're going to get with him. You know he's going to have these games where he's going to struggle a little bit, and he's going to be at like 250 passing yards and maybe 2 touchdowns. That's great. Whether you want to admit it or not, that's great. He might have a pick mixed in there. That's fine. Is he going to run as much? Not really. He may give you 20 rushing yards on a day, on a really good day. But overall, he's one of the best. Let's just be honest. He's the best quarterback in the league. Yeah. Consistency for me in fantasy football trumps everything. CJ Stroud is great, but he's in year 2. I get skeptical with guys in year 2. I don't think CJ Stroud is going to take a major step back. I think he's extremely talented, and he's going to continue to be very good. But I do think now defenses know, okay, this kid's good. We got to step our game up a little bit. And although the receiving core was really good last year, that's my worry this year is they were very young as well. And I think they're easily covered if it's schemed correctly. And I think a lot of these defenses are going to be able to figure that out. So I do think, although like I said, I think CJ Stroud is going to be fine this year. I think he's going to be still a really good quarterback. I do think there's going to be some games where he's going to have a lot of struggles because those receivers are not going to be able to get open. I just don't see that in this receiving core personally. So I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes.
So I think you're right. Patrick Mahomes is the consistency of a quarterback. In terms of fantasy relevance, he's probably like a middle tier quarterback in terms of points, not on the field. Of course, we're not talking about that. But, even towards the end of last season, he was coming alive and, you were seeing those multi-touchdown games and reaping the benefits of that towards the end of the year when they were really making that playoff push and getting that number 1 seed in the AFC, or at least the number 2 seed in the AFC. And, there's no doubt that Patrick Mahomes is a solid quarterback in literally year after year after year after year. You can count on Patrick Mahomes to throw a bunch of yards, make plays, get it to an open receiver, rush, do all the things that he needs to do. I actually think that most people should be a little bit higher on the Chiefs receivers. I feel like, in my opinion, this receiving core or what they have this season is better than last season.
Yeah,
I think that
I agree.
I think that Rashid Rice, this as being his second year receivers usually have a pretty good leap. And I feel like him having a full year in an Andy Reid offense is great. I feel like Travis Kelce will be a lot more productive in the early part of the season rather than when he came alive towards the end of the season. Because I think a lot of people could understand that Travis Kelce, like if you drafted him in round 1 or 2, he didn't live up to the production of his ADP, but he was still serviceable towards the end of the season. And I feel like Xavier Worthy, which by the way is a Valley kid, is actually going to be like a really good weapon for them because he can stretch the field. And also too, the Chiefs signed Hollywood Brown. Like he's an underrated receiver.
I think he's hurt right now, isn't he?
Sure. But I mean, when he comes back, that's another weapon for them. And, Rashid Rice being the number 1 outright, boom. And then you have some of these speedsters that kind of revolt into the offense. You really just need Rashid Rice to be your outside receiver, Travis Kelce to line up, as your tight end or another outside receiver. And then you have your speedsters around. Because really like what these offense has revolved around is a lot of quick passes because a lot of teams are trying to rush Patrick Mahomes. They're trying to take away down the field stuff. And they're really giving like 10 to 7 yards or 7 to 10 yards. They're kind of giving that depth to Patrick Mahomes. And now that you have receivers that can get open on their routes a little bit faster, lets him get the ball out. So I actually feel like that this receiving core is more talented and it'll actually be more productive than last season because last season we can all agree was a struggle fest for the Chiefs for the first 10 weeks of the season. But I say all that to say, I think CJ Stroud in terms of fantasy is the play here because you got Nico Collins, you have Tank Dell, you have Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, Dalton Schultz. an offensive line that is stout, not including the defense that can get the ball back. I agree. Like once you have a season where there's film on you, like, defenses can prepare for you. But I think Stroud, and there was a great, I think it was a podcast where Stroud was on with Micah Parsons, where you can just see CJ Stroud just showing his intelligence on reading the field and the plays and how he was talking with Micah. You can just see that this quarterback, CJ Stroud, is just extremely intelligent for his age. And he just seems a lot more advanced than some of his predecessors with him. And I feel like that CJ Stroud, even in his second year, is going to be one of those players where like he's in territory to where he's like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, because a lot of people right now are already putting him in some QB ranking of top 5 to 10, and maybe 10, and some could argue 5, which I wouldn't be mad about because he did show a lot of poise as a rookie last season. So for me, I would say CJ Stroud would be the choice for fantasy, and a lot of it is just because youth, weapons, and just his progression for season 2. So
I would probably argue that you're probably more right on CJ Stroud than I am. I'm more cautious when it comes to young quarterbacks who have success and on specific teams. Like unless I see something just like when we saw Patrick Mahomes, it was obvious this guy is going to stay good. Josh Allen the same way. With CJ Stroud, I think it's pretty obvious, but I think there are some questions to me. Like I was saying, like the receiving core, the offensive line. We'll see. Those are my questions, and it's not necessarily him. It's just what's around him. And so that's really my biggest question. So it's not that I hate CJ Stroud or I think he's going to be great or not great. Like I said, I really think the kid is great, but if it was between those two and I was going to draft one of those two, I would go Mahomes because I know what I'm getting. Versus Stroud, I have questions.
I respect it. All right.